pause, play forwards. If you prefer to use keyboard shortcuts like I do, the J, K, and L keys on your keyboard will play backwards, pause, play forwards.
Cinema 5D Stage at Photo and Adventure is brought to you by Blackmagic Design, creating amazing solutions for film, post-production, and television. Rotolite, advanced LED lighting, and Canon. Live for the story.
Welcome to the Cinema 5D Stage from Photo and Adventure 2019. We are here again with Blackmagic Design and Simon Hall. One last time, but this time you're gonna talk about basics of video editing in DaVinci Resolve 16. So I'm gonna hand over to you because you can explain this stuff 1,000 times better than me.
Never.
You do. So see you in half an hour.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Hi, my name is Simon. As Nino said, I work for Blackmagic Design. I'm a product specialist for post, so I tend to kind of go and show Resolve around our region. Can I just ask at the moment, how many of you edit video? Quite a few of you edit video. How many of you use Resolve to edit? Oh, good. A few of you. That's always good. Because Resolve has always been primarily known as a color correction tool. A lot of people know it for color correction. And don't get me wrong, we still support workflows. So if you do have another editor, so for example, if you use Premiere or Final Cut, you can still sort of take a timeline from that editing system, drop it into Resolve, grade it, and send it back out again. But obviously for us, that takes time. And what we want to do is give people a tool so they can spend more time being creative and less time worrying about if things have translated correctly. And this is why, we developed editing in Resolve. Now, for those of you new to Resolve, we've actually got a lot crammed into one application. So we have a media page where you can import and organize all your material. We have a cut page, which is very interesting. This is our new sort of fast editor. You can do a lot of sort of very quick editing in the cut page. We have the edit page, which I'm going to concentrate on today. We have Fusion, where you can do visual effects, Color, where you can do grading, Fairlight, where you can do audio, and the Deliver page is where you can render your final finished edit out. So as I said, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start in the media page. So the media page is basically where you can import and organize all your material. Now Resolve is great at reading camera files at different camera codecs. And getting the files into the system is very straightforward. In the top left-hand corner here, we have a media storage window. So for example, if I wanted to simply import a clip, I could select it to where it's stored on my hard drive and simply drag and drop it into the media pool down here. So let me just show you where that file goes. So again, as you can see, I can just drag and drop a file in here and let go, and it just drops it in. And as I said, you can do this with a range of files. It doesn't have to be sort of QuickTime files. We support RAW files, so if you shoot on 8K RED files, it imports in exactly the same way. Now, if you have already sorted your media out into folders, like I have here, you can see I have an entire folder of media. I could, if I wanted to import all these clips, I could simply drag the folder into the media pool window and it'll just import all the clips automatically. Or, if you've taken the time to organize your clips and sort them into folders, you can simply drag the folder and drop it into your master bin here and let go. And as you can see, it actually adds the bin. And then again, if I click on the master, there's the bin that's been imported, and obviously I can drag and drop files into bins, and you can create bins in the media pool as well. So, if you've used an editing system before, this will be very familiar to you. The one thing that may be refreshing to you is the performance of Resolve. If you saw how quickly it was there, all I did was drop the media in, and the thumbnail generated immediately. I didn't have to wait for it to cache or anything. It's incredibly fast. Now, what we've also done as well, we've sort of added bits to our media management that are very, very clever. The one that I really like, and I love this because I'm lazy, how many of you rename your clips? Some of you do. Again, depends on the size of your project. If you have a small project, you might just throw a few clips in. If I've got a big project like this, I might want to rename my clips. Now, admittedly, these files are shot on a Blackmagic camera. So you can see our file names. Our camera name gives the file a long file name. Now, as an editor, what I'd normally want to do is go through and rename these clips. If I've got about 200 clips, I don't really want to do that. I find it boring, to tell you the truth. And as an editor, most editors, when it comes to this sort of stuff, are quite lazy. I'm quite lazy when it comes to this. So what you can do in Resolve is you can actually use metadata attached to the clip to rename them. Now, all clips have metadata in, so you know, your clips always have metadata. You'll always have a clip. Oops, get rid of the tooltip a second. You'll always, you'll always have a clip name. You'll always have a codec, a frame rate. It'll give you the resolution as well. That's metadata that's automatically added to a clip. But one of the cool things about you sort of using Blackmagic cameras and Resolve together is the fact that if I just show you different metadata in here, you can see when they were shooting this, actually on the camera, they added a shot number. So our cameras have a big touch screen, and you can just add shot numbers. So what the guys did when they were shooting this, they just added a shot number, and also somebody just wrote some comments. So again, if you're on set and you're doing a lot of shots, you might just want to keep track of what you've shot. So you might just write a comment down, and you can actually add that on our camera. The reason why editors love this is because I can use that metadata to rename my clips. So if I select all these files in here, and I right-click, I can go into my clip attributes. And as you can see, the clip attributes at the moment, the clip name is blank, because I've selected a lot of clips all in one go, so the clip name is blank. However, if I add a percentage value in here, it gives me a huge list of metadata that I can use to rename my clip. So if I just type in shot, and I'll just choose shot from the drop-down menu, and I'll do the same for comments as well. So now when I hit OK, you can see it renames all the shots according to my metadata. Now you imagine you've got 500, 600 shots, and you can rename them like that. It can save you a day of work. So we do I get excited about metadata. A lot of people kind of go, why? It's very boring. But we've also done some very, very cool things as well to sort out media. And one of the things we've really done that's very, very impressive is in Resolve 16, we have a neural engine. We basically have a form of artificial intelligence in the software. And what this neural engine can do, it has facial recognition in it. So what I want to do is these shots here, as you can see, I've got different characters. So what I'm going to say to Resolve is, I am going to say, I want you to analyze clips for people. So what it will do is it'll go through and analyze the clips, and it'll bring up these thumbnails. So if I click on person number 1 in here, you can see Resolve has gone through the video clips and picked up the same character. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come out of this, and my first character, his name is Philip. So if I just label this bin Philip, I'm just going to close this down a second. We have in Resolve something called smart bins, and as you can see, I have a smart bin for people. Now, as you can see in here, I relabeled that bin for Philip. So all the shots that he appears in are now in that smart bin. So it does that automatically. So if you have interviews or lots of characters, if you just want the shots that contain them, you can just analyze the clips for people, and it'll automatically sort it out into bins. As you can see, when Resolve isn't quite sure, you can always go in and assign the person to somebody. So let me just open up the people window again. So you can see in here, I've got sort of several shots. And again, Resolve at the moment isn't quite sure who is in this shot. But as you can see, it's still my same character. So I can always right-click, and I simply say, well, tag this as Philip. And now that clip will appear in my smart bin. Again, this is massively time-saving. This is very, very clever stuff. So again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to give you the tools that save you time, so you don't have to spend time relabeling clips, finding your characters. Resolve will do it for you automatically. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump across to the edit page. So as you can see, the edit page down the left-hand side has a media pool. This media pool is a direct mirror of the media pool I've just been working in. You can, if you want, simply import clips into this window, the Command I, Control I, whether you use Mac or PC, is still valid, so you can import like that. We just have the media pool, so you've got a kind of a nice interface to work with. Again, if you've edited in other software, this interface is probably very, very familiar to you. I've got a source monitor, a timeline monitor, and a timeline down the bottom. So for me, if I want to start editing, I'm just going to put my clips in the right order. I'll just turn off my live preview. Just to point this out, we do have a live preview option in Resolve. So, if you want to preview your clips very quickly, you can see what I can do is I can just pass the mouse over them, and it will sort of skim through and give me a quick preview. Just for now, I'm just going to turn that off. So, again, if you've edited in other systems before, this workflow will be very familiar to you. I can double-click on a clip, open it up in my source monitor. I have playback controls down the bottom here. As you can see, I can play backwards, pause, play forwards. If you prefer to use keyboard shortcuts like I do, the J, K, and L keys on your keyboard will play backwards, pause, play forwards. And if I keep pressing sort of L, it will fast forward through my shot, like so, and rewind. To simply mark a clip, you do have buttons in the bottom right-hand corner as well. So as you can see, I have a mark in and mark out. Again, if you prefer keyboard shortcuts, I and O on the keyboard. And quite simply, I'll be very quick with this. I can simply pick up this clip here, can mark an in point, play through to where my character sort of half comes into the shot, mark an out point, and then simply drag and drop the clip into the timeline, and it appears. Again, like most bits of software, Resolve has multiple ways of doing the same thing. So, you have different types of edit. I have inserts, I have overwrites. So for example, with this second shot here of my character Philip, I just want to grab a bit of him. I can grab from my source monitor and go into my timeline monitor. And as you can see in here, I get an overlay. And as you can see, what I can do now is I can choose an overwrite, and it will simply drop the clip into the timeline where my playhead is. Again, if I want to insert a clip, I can put my playhead in between two clips here, grab the second clip in my timeline, and simply say insert, and it will insert the clip in. I quite often do like the append at end. We have a command called append at end. So what I can simply do is choose append at end, and it'll simply ignore the position of my playhead and just stack the clips in the timeline one after the other. And if you've quickly been through your clips and marked the sort of in and out points, so you can see in here, you can see my thumbnails in here, these clips have in and out points marked. I can very quickly sort of select a series of clips, drag them straight from the media pool and say append at end, and it drops everything into the timeline. Again, if you've edited before, this will be very familiar to you. To delete a clip, very straightforward. I can select it, hit backspace, and it will delete the clip in my timeline. If I'd like to delete part of a clip, so my end conversation clip here, if I play this clip back, my character sort of does a really long dramatic pause, and I really don't like it. So as you can see here, he's just sort of nodding and not really saying anything, and what I want to do is I want to cut that out. So again, in the edit page, I have a series of tools. So far, all I've been using is the selection tool, but I actually have a razor blade tool as well. So if I click on the blade tool will allow me to splice a clip wherever I click over it in the timeline. So as you can see, I put some markers in to help me. I've cheated a little bit. So what I can do is if I click on the clip, it splices the clip where I clicked. So I'll just get the endpoint, and then if I go back to my selection tool, I can just simply delete that clip and close the gap. But now obviously what I've got is I've got a jump cut in there, and I want to hide that. So maybe what I want, now he's having a conversation, I want to see the other character in this conversation, I want to see her response. So what I can do is I can grab the clip that I like. Now, admittedly, I could put this in the timeline, but I don't want the audio to come with it. So you can see in Resolve, when you have clips that have video and audio that are linked together, I get these little icons up. If I drag from this icon here, the little film strip, it'll just bring the video into the timeline. If I drag from the audio, funnily enough, it just brings the audio in. So again, what I can do with this is I can drag from this icon here, drag into my timeline monitor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the option place on top. Oops, that window's just disappeared on me. So you can see I've got an option that says place on top. So if I do a place on top, as you can see, it'll simply place the clip on top, cover what is underneath. So now I've got a conversation where I see the character's response, and I've hidden the jump cut. Again, when you're editing in your timeline, it is a non-destructive process. So when I'm marking a clip, I'm not throwing anything away. So I have the ability to trim. What we did is when we looked at how editing systems work, they have trim tools, but they have different trim tools to do different types of trimming. And again, we thought, well, why do you need different tools? In theory, if you can make the mouse smart enough and decide where you want to trim, you could do it all in one tool. And that's what we've done. So next to my selection tool, I have an icon here that's the trim tool. And what the trim tool will do, it will allow me to ripple, roll, slip, and slide all my edits from within one tool. So again, if I take a look at this edit here, the timing of this edit is sort of all over the place, really, because first of all, when we come into this clip, my character's standing still. But also, as well, he sort of half walks to the table, and in the next shot, he's at the table. So what I might want to do is I might want to extend this second clip. So what I can do is if I click with my trim tool and simply drag, it'll extend the clip in my timeline. And as I said, what I'm doing here is I'm actually doing a ripple edit. So you can see what we mean by a ripple edit is, as you can see when I trim, it'll push everything down in my timeline. It's great for extending shots because it means you're extending the shot and you're not overwriting anything in the timeline. Again, you know, what I can do is if I want to trim off the start of, if I want to trim off the start of the shot where my character's not actually moving, I can just do that. I can click and drag like so. So now when we come to that shot, he's already started walking. But as you can see, the timing's not quite right. So what I can do is using the same tool, using the same trim tool, if I select the edit point, so rather than selecting an in or an out point, if I select the edit point between two clips, I can sort of retime the edit point. So I can roll the edit. So I can extend my first clip and sort of time it with the second clip. So he's put his, I'm about right there. I think he puts his hands on the table. So as you can see now, he'll walk to the table. And when he starts to lean over in this shot, I am slightly out. So again, I can always sort of trim off. And as you can see, the speed of this is I'm using the same tool. I'm not having to go back to different tools. It's all in the same tool. And as I said, for those of you who use these, for example, the slip tool a lot. So I don't know if you guys use the slip tool. I use the slip tool all the time. So the slip tool allows you to choose a different piece of media from the same clip for the same duration. All you're doing is you're moving the in and out points together. So for example, if I look at this first shot here, it's okay, but I'd prefer the camera to actually come to rest on my character because we're introducing him at this point. So what I can do is, again, with the trim tool, I can just click and drag. And as you can see, I can slip the material, and in my timeline viewer, the top two windows give me the in and out point together, so I can actually see, I've actually got a live preview of where my clip is going to start and going to finish. So as you can now see, again, I've not changed the duration of that shot, I've just changed the media that we're looking at, so it starts and finishes later. We also, finally with the trim tool, I've also got a slide edit as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop this clip into the timeline. Now the slide edit's great if you've got a really important shot and you want to keep it and you can sort of retime it with the clips either side. With the slide tool, again, if I sort of put the mouse towards the bottom of the clip, it turns into the slide tool. And as you can see, basically it slides the clip that I'm selected on over the top of the other two. So it doesn't affect the duration of the clip I'm working on, it affects the duration of the clip either side. It's really good. If you ever do sort of corporate work and there's always the hero shot of the car or the packaging, what you're doing, and you always want to keep that, you can just sort of slide it over the top of other shots to make sure you've got it. But as you can see with the Resolve, using the trim tool, I don't have to keep going backwards and forwards between my tools. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to add a few more clips to this. So again, you know, sort of doing the edits that I've done and trimming, you can get a lot of your assemble edit finished like that. But you know, as editors, you may do speed changes, you may have to reframe shots, you may, you know, you have to retime shots, you may have to apply effects, transitions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up a nice little feature that I like in Resolve. So we have tabbed timelines. So as you can see now, again, we have tabbed timelines. But what I can also do is I can also stack timelines. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab my effects start timeline. So as you can see, I can have two timelines that sit together. Actually, I am not. I am going to grab my edit compare. I think that's it. It's all right if I find the right timeline. So, what I can do in here, if I have a series of shots within my timeline that I want to sort of copy and paste out, I can do that. I can select them, and I can copy from one timeline, and then when I go back to my other one, when my machine catches up with me, I can sort of do an insert paste and paste clips. So you can compare timelines, you can copy clips between them. So what I'm now going to do is I am just going to turn off my tabbed timeline. And what I'd like to do in here is I need to sort of retime some of these shots. Just going to get rid of those a second. So for example, I have a shot here. It's my start shot just here. And what I want to do, I'm just going to actually pull this out a little bit. So what I want to do here is, this is sort of a fast moving shot. And what I actually want to do is I want to slow it down. So you can see this moves at quite a pace, and actually what I'd like to do is I'd like to slow this shot down. So again, in Resolve, I can actually right-click, and as you can see, I have the option in here to simply say change clip speed. So if I drop this to 50%, I can simply hit change, and it will slow this clip down. Again, I might just extend it out a little bit further. Obviously, with this, what I've done is I've slowed it down, but as you can see, it's got quite a staccato movement. It's kind of and it's obviously because I'm slowing a clip down by 50%. I only have a set amount of frames, so what Resolve does as a default, it will play a frame, hold a frame, play a frame, hold a frame. Now, in this case, I don't want that because it doesn't look great. So what I can do is if I go into my inspector, so you have an inspector in Resolve that shows you all the parameters of the clip that you're selected on. And if I scroll down, you can see I have an option that says retime and scaling. So if I double click on retiming and scaling, it gives me some sort of retiming options. And under this retime process, nearest is the default, but I have a frame blend, but also I've got optical flow. And optical flow is really cool because what optical flow will do is the frames that it's missing, because I've slowed the clip down, Resolve will generate new frames. So if I now hit optical flow and play this back, looks perfectly smooth. The thing that I love about this, guys, is I am not using any sort of fancy hardware here. I am using a MacBook Pro. It has just done a real-time optical flow without any need for rendering. So when I now when I work in Resolve, I'm amazed at just how many effects we can do in real time. I don't have to render this at all. The same goes, with speeding a clip up. I can speed a clip up in the same way. I have a dramatic clip here, but I want that to be a lot quicker. I can do the same thing to say, well, I want this to be sort of 200%. I can change that, and now I've got a much more dramatic shot. And yes, I can add things like transitions. So we have an effects library in here. So as you can see, I can add transitions. So, I just simply want to dissolve between two shots. I can maybe drag it onto the side of a shot here, and it'll dissolve this shot in. I can apply effects. So for example, this shot here of the thruster sort of dying out, it's not quite dramatic enough. I need a bit more shake on that. So again, if I go into my effects, my open effects in here, I can scroll down and go and find a camera shake, or I have a search box. So if I click on here, and I'll just and as you can see, I've got something called camera shake, and I can simply drag and drop that onto the clip. It's added a bit more shake, but again, what I can now do is go into my inspector. There's the open effect shot, and I can sort of tweak this effect. So now it has a lot more wobble on it. And again, if you see, real-time processing. Didn't have to do any rendering for that at all. For those of you that may need to sort of reframe shots, so for example, my character here, if I just want to reframe him slightly, I want it to be a bit more central. Again, I can do that. I can select a clip. I could use the inspector. You can see I have transform controls in the inspector, but also I have on-screen transform controls. So you can see I've got this little icon here. So if I click on this, I'm just going to zoom out so I can grab the edges. So as you can see, I can simply pull this out a little bit, reframe my character. Again, if I wanted to keyframe this, so I want to do a little pan and scan on it. Again, in my inspector, I have the ability to add a keyframe to a position, move my playhead to the end of the shot, and then maybe just adjust the X value very slightly. So now that is keyframed, and I've got some movement in there. And again, you can do things. You can do audio mixing. For those of you who need to do more sort of complex visual effects, we have the Fusion page in Resolve. So it's a node-based compositor, and it takes a little bit of time to learn. But we do have free books on our website that you can download and work your way through. But again, it's really good. So, the Resolve effects are fantastic. But if you need to go a little bit further, so for example, if I've got a green screen shot in here, I can jump across to the Fusion page. And in the Fusion page here, what I can actually do is say, I want to add a keyer to this. So I'm going to add what we call a delta keyer. I can sort of go and key out the green screen background. I can just view the alpha channel to make sure my key is clean. That's pretty good. And again, what I might want to do in this, I might want to add a background, so I can do that as well. So somewhere in here I have a background. I can merge this. So I've got a background in here. I can merge this with my foreground. So as you can now see, I've got the green screen and the planet in the background. And then, one of the issues I have with this is my foreground moves, but my background doesn't. And this is where, we have a visual effects tool, because what you really want to do is you want to track the foreground and then apply the movement to the background. So again, I can do that as well. So what I can do is I can grab a tracker, track the movement of my foreground. And then if I add a transform node to the background, I have an option in here that simply says, just zoom in, I have an option here that simply says connect to my tracker and unsteady the position, so move the background in accordance with the foreground. So now when I play this back, you can see the background and the foreground move together. Obviously what I might need to do is scale the background up a little bit, which I can do as well. So I'll just scale that up slightly. So you can now see they move together. So you have an edit page where you can go and build your edits, but if you need to do deeper VFX work, we have the Fusion page as well. If I go back to the edit page, you can see that the composition I built in the Fusion page translates back. So as you can see, if you've edited in another piece of software, actually editing in Resolve may be very familiar to you, but we have all these tools in one application. So you can do your visual effects work. Don't know if you guys were around earlier, I did a whole session on grading. And again, anything that you grade, so anything, for example, anything that I grade in Resolve, in the color page, so for example, I'll just grade that. I go back to the edit page, the color transform applies to both. So this is why we put an editor in Resolve, to give you the ability to edit and then to grade and to do your visual effects. So we've got Fairlight, so you can do your audio mixing. So, because we found in post, a lot of people spend time sort of round tripping between applications, and that in itself can bring up errors. And this is what we said. We wanted to give people more time to do the creative stuff and not have to worry about getting things in and out of applications. Everything that I've showed you today, guys, apart from the people analysis, we have to pay bills somehow. So, but everything apart from the people analysis is available in the free version of Resolve. So the Fusion stuff that I was doing, all the editing, you can go and download it for free. We do it for Mac, Windows, and Linux. To get some of the other good stuff with the sort of the people analysis, that's in the studio version, but that's 299 euros. And it's a one-off payment. It's not a subscription service. It's a one-off payment. When we launch future versions of Resolve, you just go onto our website and download the update. As I was also saying as well, on our website, we have a product page for Resolve, and the last tab in that is training. And in there we have 2 books. So we have an intro to Resolve book, but then we've got books on editing, color correction, visual effects in Fusion, and also working with Fairlight as well. The final thing I'll just mention, if that's okay. The final thing I'll just mention is, once you've finished editing, you have a deliver page. So depending on what you do, so for example, if you're uploading things to YouTube or Vimeo, you can see we've got templates in here. So you can just go in and choose the resolution you want to render out at. It sets up all your render options, and you just add that to the render queue and render it out. We've got all sorts of very cool stuff in there. For those of you, if you're trying to do a short or, for example, a treatment for somebody like Netflix, they will want it in something called an IMF file. We have the IMF delivery for Netflix, and this is in the free version. So, and again, for those of you who may have a short going to a film festival, we do have something called DCP. You may have a film festival go, oh, we want a DCP. And again, one of the issues was there's some guys do something called Easy DCP, which is great. It encrypts a file that can only be locked by sort of a cinema server. But it's quite expensive to buy. And what we were finding is people were submitting short films to film festivals, and then they were having to pay a lot of money to submit files on DCP. So now in Resolve, we actually do have our own version of DCP. It doesn't encrypt it, but for film festivals, that's not too much of a problem. So again, you can just encode your file as DCP, and it's accepted widely, so you can show your short on a cinema screen. I think that's all I have to say for now. Again, guys, if you've got any questions, I will be milling around.
Thank you very much, Simon.
My pleasure.
Thank you. As you said, you have to pay the bills sometimes, but I have to wonder how you're actually able to put that much functionality in a free piece of software.
I have no idea.
You have no
I
idea. You're
genuinely
not
have no-
connected to the business side, but we're happy that it is the case because I think up to 4K exports are possible in the free
Yeah,
version.
so up to Ultra HD,
Okay.
which again for most people is.
Brilliant. Okay, and I think you also mentioned there's a lot of free resources online.
Yeah, so we have all our training manuals that are free, so you can download the PDF and all the training material that goes with them. There's some videos on the website as well, and also on our YouTube channel, there's sort of full, if you've got time, sort of 90-minute presentations that go through the entire manual. So
Okay.
yeah, there's quite a few resources out there.
All right. Thank you, Simon.
pleasure.
Thanks a lot for this weekend here of
My
courses. And thanks everybody for being here and watching.